Michael says, hey, Ben, serious question. What would it take to turn the Star Wars franchise around for you with the upcoming Rise of Skywalker film? It was all a dream. It was all a dream would be the best possible solution. I think that we probably, at this point, have to redo all of it. It turns out that killing off all of your childhood heroes and making them losers was a very bad idea. And there's this line in The Last Jedi where Kylo Ren turns to Rey and says, why can't we just erase all of the past and then we'll start new, you and me? And it's a really interesting moment. And Rey's like, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. Okay, the problem is that Disney is actually Kylo Ren. So they've taken all the nostalgia that you had for your childhood watching the Star Wars movies, and then they have killed off every one of those characters one by one to benefit characters who are significantly less interesting on every possible level. It's terrible. I mean, I blame J.J. Abrams. I think this all I'm not going to blame Rian Johnson as the true creator of the Star Wars collapse. J.J. Abrams is a derivative B-movie director, and he directed he directed episode, what was it, 7? He directed episode 7 with all of the creativity of a plagiarist. Hey, look, a Death Star. I'm shocked. Hey, look, it's a guy who's he's just basically Darth Vader. That's amazing. But he created a great sin. The great sin, as I've said before, is that he took Han Solo, who was the coolest character in the original Star Wars, and turned him into a loser divorced dad who wanders around the universe in his Cadillac with the fuzzy dice and his best friend smoking weed, and then shows up only to be killed by his son at the behest of his wife he hasn't seen in 20 years for the dumbest possible reason. At that point, I was like, out. Sorry, I'm out. So, I think that what would it take to make this happen? What would take to make this more interesting and creative would be for there to be a sort of mixture of the light and dark side. There's been talk about this, that maybe Rey unifies the light and the dark, and that was sort of the move that Kylo Ren was making in the last movie. That would have been interesting. They were actually, honestly, like 15 seconds away from making that movie really fascinating, and that was Kylo Ren and Rey joining forces, right? That would have been fascinating. And then the tension between them. Like, what they really should have done is they should have allowed Rey to move with Kylo Ren, and then they should have had the original Star Wars characters, because at that point, Luke is still alive. They should have had the original Star Wars characters then fighting against the newbies, right? That would have been fascinating and really counterintuitive because, honestly, let's be real about this. Who cares about Kylo Ren and Rey? Like, just your sympathies, don't lie with them. Your sympathies were always with the original characters because you have 40 years of nostalgia for those characters. Stupid. Okay, so here's my proposal. My proposal is we pretend that these movies never happened. It was all a dream. And then we either recast all of the original parts and pick up right where Return of the Jedi left off, with Admiral Thrawn still out there trying to reunite the fragments of the Empire. Or we fast forward 70 years, everybody's dead, there are statues of them in the Great Hall, and you just move on with whatever the universe is. Instead, they decided to have the baby, and you ended up with the worst of all possible scenarios.